Hello, Shalom. Welcome to part 135 of the Daily Bread. We're reading in the Scriptures 2009 version, Numbers chapter 30, 2 Kings chapter 20, Psalms 131, Proverbs 15, and from the book of Romans chapter 4, Numbers chapter 30 on page 175. And Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, This is the word which Yahweh has commanded. When a man vows a vow to Yahweh, or swears an oath by himself by some agreement, he does not break his word. He does according to all that comes out of his mouth. Or if a woman vows a vow to Yahweh and binds herself by some agreement while in her father's house in her youth, and her father hears her vow and the agreement by which she has bound herself, and her father has kept silent toward her, then all her vows shall stand, and every agreement with which she has bound herself stands. But if her father forbids her on the day that he hears, then none of her vows nor her agreements by which she is bound herself stand. And Yahweh pardons her, because her father has forbidden her. But if she at all belongs to a husband while bound by her vows, or by a rash utterance from her lips by which she bound herself, and her husband hears it, and he has kept silent towards her on the day that he hears, then her vows shall stand, and her agreements by which she bound herself do stand. But if her husband forbids her on the day he hears it, then he has nullified her vow which she vowed, and the rash utterance of her lips by which she bound herself, and Yahweh pardons her. But any vow of a widow or a divorced woman by which she has bound herself stands against her. And if she vowed in her husband's house, or bound herself by an agreement with an oath, and her husband heard it, and has kept silent toward her, and did not forbid her, then all her vows stand, and every agreement by which she bound herself stands. But if her husband clearly nullified them on the day he hears them, then whatever came from her lips concerning her vows, or concerning the agreement binding her, it does not stand. Her husband has nullified them, and Yahweh pardons them. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her being, let her husband confirm it, or let her husband nullify it. But if her husband is altogether silent at her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows and all her agreements that bind her. He confirms them, because he kept silent toward her on the day that he heard. But if he nullifies them after he has heard, then he shall bear her crookedness. These are the laws which Yahweh commanded Moshe between a man and his wife, and between a father and his daughter in her youth in her father's house. Second Kings chapter 20 on page 406. In those days Hezekiah was sick unto death, and Jehoshu, this prophet, son of Amos, went to him and said to him, Thus said Yahweh, command your house, for you are going to die and not live. And he turned his face toward the wall and prayed to Yahweh, saying, I pray to you, O Yahweh. Remember how I have walked before you in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done none what was good in your eyes. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. And it came to be, before Jehoash had gone out in the middle of the court, that the word of Yahweh came to him, saying, Return and say to Hezekiah, the leader of my people, Thus said Yahweh, the Elohim of David your father, I have heard your prayer. I have seen your tears. See, I am going to heal you. On the third day, go up to the house of Yahweh. And I shall add to your days 15 years, and deliver you and the city from the hand of the sovereign of Ashur, and shall defend this city for my own sake and the sake of of David my servant. And Jehoash said, Take a cake of figs. And they took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. And Hezekiah said to Jehoash, What is the sign that Yahweh does heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of Yahweh the third day? And Jehoash said, This is the sign for you from Yahweh, that Yahweh does the word which he has spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 degrees, or go backward 10 degrees? And Hezekiah said, It would be easy for the shadow to go down 10 degrees. No, but let the shadow go backward 10 degrees. And Jehoash the prophet cried out to Yahweh, and he brought the shadow 10 degrees backwards, by which it had gone down on the sundial of Asi. At that time, Baruch Balaam, son of Balaam, sovereign of Babel, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard Hezekiah had been sick. And Hezekiah listened to them, and showed them all his treasure house, the silver and the gold, and the spices, and the precious ointment, and all his armory, and all that was found among his treasures. There was not an object in his house or in all his rule that Hezekiah did not show them. And Jehoash the prophet came to sovereign Hezekiah and said to him, What did these men say, and from where did they come to you? And Hezekiah said, They came from a distant land, from Babel. And he said, What have they seen in your house? And Hezekiah answered, They saw all that was in my house. There is no object among my treasures that I did not show them. And Jehoash said to Hezekiah, Hear the word of Yahweh. See, the days are coming when all that is in your house and what your fathers have treasured up until this day shall be brought to Babel. No object is to be left, said Yahweh. And they are going to take away some of your sons whom were born to you, whom you bring forth, and they shall be eunuchs in the place of the sovereigns of Babel. And Hezekiah said to Jehoash, The word of Yahweh which you have spoken is good. And he said, It is not so, if peace and truth are to be in my days. And the rest of the acts of Hezekiah and all his might, and how he made a pool and a channel, and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Judah? So Hezekiah slept with his fathers, and Menahesh his son reigned in his place. Moving on to Proverbs 15 on page 742. A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up displeasure. The tongue of the wise makes knowledge good, but the mouth of fools spurs out foolishness. The eyes of Yahweh are in every place, watching the evil and the good. A healing tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in the air in it crushes the spirit. A fool despises his father's discipline, but he who heeds reproof is clever. The household of the righteous is a great treasure, but in the income of the wrong is trouble. The lips of the wise scatter knowledge, but the heart of fools is not so. The slaughtering of the wrong ones is an abomination to Yahweh, but the prayer of the straight is his delight. The way of the wrong one is an abomination to Yahweh, but he loves him who pursues righteousness. Discipline is grievous to him who forsakes the way. He who hates reproof dies. Shield and destruction are before Yahweh. How much more the hearts of the sons of men? A scoffer does love his reprover, verse 12. A scoffer does not love his reprover, nor does he go to the wise. A glad heart makes a good face, but by sorrow of heart the spirit is stricken. The heart of the understanding one seeks knowledge, but the mouth of fools feeds on folly. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but gladness of heart is a continual feast. Better is a little with the fear of Yahweh than a great treasure with trouble. Better is a meal with vegetables where love is than a fatted calf with hatred. A man of wrath stirs up strife, but he who is patient appeases strife. The way of the lazy one is like a hedge of thorns, but the way of the straight is a highway. A wise son makes a father glad, but a foolish man despises his mother. Folly is joy to one lacking heart, but a man of understanding walks straight. Without counsel, plans go wrong, but by great counselors they are established. A man has joy by the answer of his mouth, and how good is a word spoken in its season. The path of life is upward for the wise, to turn away from Sheol below. Yahweh tears down the house of the proud, and he sets up the boundary of the widow. Evil thoughts are an abomination to Yahweh, but pleasant words are clean. He who is greedy for gain troubles his own house, but he who hates bribes lives. The heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wrong pours out evil. Yahweh is far from the wrong ones, but he hears the prayer of the righteous. The light of the eyes rejoices the heart. A good report gives marrow to the bones. An ear that hears reproof of life does dwell among the wise. He who ignores discipline hates himself, but he who listens to reproof gets understanding. The fear of Yahweh is the discipline of wisdom, and before esteem is humility. Just occurred to me, I skipped Psalms 133. So, Psalms 133 on page 722. O Yahweh, my heart has not been proud, nor have my eyes been haughty. Neither have I concerned myself with great matters, nor with those too wondrous for me. Have I not calmed and kept my being silent, like one weaned by its mother? My being is like one weaned. O Israel, wait for Yahweh, now and forever. Moving on to Romans chapter 4 on page 1093, 1093. What then shall we say Abraham our father to have found according to the flesh? For if Abraham has declared right by works, he has ground for boasting, but not before Elohim. For what does the scripture say? Abraham believed Elohim, and it was reckoned to him for righteousness. Genesis 15:6. Genesis, right? Genesis 15:6. And to him who is working, the reward is not reckoned as a favor, but as a debt. And to him who is not working, but believes on him who is declaring right the wicked, his belief is reckoned for righteousness. Even as David also says of the blessed of the man of Elohim reckons righteousness without works. Blessed are those whose lawlessness are forgiven and whose sins are covered. Blessed is the man to whom Yahweh shall by no means reckon sin. Psalms 32, verses 1 and 2. Is this blessing then upon the circumcised only, or only and also upon the uncircumcised? For we afflict belief was reckoned unto Abraham for righteousness. Genesis 15, verse 6. How then was it reckoned? Being in circumcision or in uncircumcision? Not in circumcision, but in circumcision. And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteous of the belief, while the uncircumcision for him to be a father of all those believing through uncircumcision, for righteousness to be reckoned to them also. And the father in circumcision to those who not only are of the circumcision, but also walk in the steps of the belief which our father Abraham had in uncircumcision, and for the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the Torah, but through a righteousness of belief. For if those who are of the Torah are heirs, belief has been made useless, and the promise has been nullified. For the Torah works out of wrath. For the Torah works out wrath. For there is no Torah, for there is no transgression. On account of this, it is belief that be according to favor, for the promise to be made certain to all the seed, not only to those who are of the Torah, but also to those who are the belief of Abraham, who is father of us all. As it had been written, I have made you a father of many nations. Genesis 17, verse 5. In the presence of him who he believed, even Elohim, who gives life to the dead and calls that which does not exist, who against all expectation did believe in expectation, so that he should become father of many nations, according to what was said, so shall your seed be. Genesis 15, verse 5. And not having grown weak in belief, he did not consider his own body, already dead, being about 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. He did not hesitate about the promise of Elohim through unbelief, but was strengthened in belief, giving esteem to Elohim, and being completely persuaded that he had promised he would also do. Therefore also it was reckoned to him for righteousness. Genesis 15, verse 6. And not because of him alone was it written, that it was reckoned to him. Genesis 15:6 again. But also because of us, to whom it shall be reckoned, to us who believe in him, who raised up Yeshua our Master from the dead, who was delivered up because of our trespasses, and was raised for us to be declared right. Shalom. Make it a great day. Read your Bible and talk to the Father.